Yeah, it does. Really good picture.
Cool.
That's YouTube, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay guys, thanks for coming. My name's George. I'm a professional aquascaper, so it's my job to make pretty fish tanks, which is really cool. It's my hobby as well, and it's really like work, so I'm very blessed to be able to do what I do and earn a living from it. Today's workshop evening is all about how to aquascape this beautiful Aquascaper 600 aquarium by Evolution Aqua. A little bit of background about the aquarium range itself.
YouTube trying to reconnect.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I collaborate with Evolution Aqua, who make these tanks and cabinets, and I saw a gap in the market for a really high quality product but at a reasonable price. So the kind of a brand that some of you may have heard of, ADA, Aqua Designer Mano, a very luxurious sort of Japanese brand, but very costly. So I love that kind of style of aquarium, open top, braceless, rimless, a really low iron glass. So when you look down the cross section, it's actually like a light blue colour rather than a green. So if you look at that tank there, can you see it's like a dark green? And that's because it's got more iron in the glass, and that's what the green is. Minimum silicone work as well. And the whole idea is your eyes want to be drawn to the aquascape itself and not the aquarium. So it's actually trying to minimise the impact of any equipment. You've got some cool lighting here above it. This is a Twin Star 600E. It's a mixture of red, green and blue and white LEDs in it, and it's really good for making the colours pop. Are we alright, Dave? Is it some dramas?
This one's Facebook, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you go onto a live video?
Does it not work? Oh, okay.
It just was it cut out basically, so you start again.
Publish, and then live video.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. You can describe the video there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it's just a really cool tank. If you want to buy one, Dave does sell them, and free delivery as well. I'm not sure if he's doing it. Are you doing some discounts today, Dave, as well?
Yeah, we've got 10% off rocks and wood, 15% on tissue culture plants, got 15% on a brand new range of Elos products,
cool.
And 20% on shrimp products. So excellent, quite a few offers on today.
So yeah, do hang around. I'll be available for a chat after. Please ask me any questions throughout the demonstration. It's going to be a really good, fun, kind of relaxed session. Nothing too formal. Hopefully you all enjoy it and learn some stuff. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. The aquascape is what we call a Dutch style aquascape. For those that aren't aware, it's a very kind of neat and formal style of aquascape where we're relying on kind of neat rows and high impact colours, almost like a formal English garden, if you know what I mean. And we're trying to replicate that kind of formal look in the aquarium itself. So I've only ever set up one Dutch style aquascape before. So as I say, I'm normally a big fan of the nature aquarium style. So if you look at the hi guys, thanks for coming. If you look at the aquariums, just the display of the aquariums, they're all pretty much nature aquarium style, which is grabbing a slice of nature from outside and bringing it into your aquarium. Well, the Dutch style is it's not about bringing nature, you know, the essence of nature. It's about trying to create like a formal garden. So you can get the kind of idea from that photo there. And this is loosely based on what I'm going to try and create this evening for you. Like I said, ask me any questions throughout the demonstration. We are live streaming, so please don't swear. And yeah, we'll get cracking. Any questions so far on the equipment or anything like that so far? No? Cool. So, with aquascaping, what is aquascaping? So, is anyone a real beginner, never aquascaped anything in their life before? No? Yeah? Okay, we'll go back to basics. So aquascaping is the art of creating a beautiful aquarium, basically. And it's different to fish keeping. It's a kind of a genre of fish keeping, but it isn't, you know, it's not just a fish tank. What we're trying to create is a beautiful piece of art, basically, a living piece of art in an aquarium. And so, yeah, it's just a really cool hobby. I love it. As I say, I've been doing it for about 10 years or so now. I started writing for Practical Fish Keeping in 2006 and have pretty much an article in there every month about planted tanks and aquascaping. Been all over the world doing it. It's really awesome. So, as with any aquascape, you need to hopefully plan it. it's unlikely that you can just grab random plants, random bits of decor, shove them randomly in a tank and make a great looking aquascape. Normally you have to have a certain element of planning and forward thinking. So with that in mind, Dave's kindly done a plant map key for me. So I'm going to put the substrate in. I'll explain exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it. But I'm going to mark out the different areas in the gravel, basically where I'm going to put each plant. So it's like a plan, if you like. So we've got some different coloured cable ties, which I'm just going to kind of place in the gravel, and that will be used as like a little boundary markers for each species of plant. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is install the substrate. So I normally use a soil-based substrate. So it's really handy. Basically, a commercial soil that's been prepared especially for aquarium use. It's basically like mud, but it's been compressed and baked, and you can use it quite safely in an aquarium. Here we go, this is a good example. You could just see there, these are really fine granules. You can get bigger granules. It's a really good product. It helps feed the plants, helps to buffer the pH around about 6.5. Really, really cool. But I'm not going to use that today. I'm going to use more of a traditional, old school kind of traditional way of putting a substrate in. And that's to start off with a nutrient-rich base layer. So this is a Dunelay product. It contains lots of good stuff to help feed the plants. And this goes on the bottom of the tank. It doesn't need any pre-rinsing. So if I can figure out how to undo it. Slide that back. In fact, I'll work from behind so you can see what we're doing. And this is just about the right amount for this size tank. How much does this retail for, Dave? Dave around.
Yeah, it retails for $24.99.
Okay. And the advantage of this over a soil, for instance, is that we'll be using an inert gravel on top, and that will last forever. Whereas the soils can kind of degrade over time, and they can end up into like a muddy sludge. So the advantage of this is it stays intact. So it's kind of a lot longer term substrate system. Dunelay, a very good company from Germany. Some of you might have heard them already. They started their high-tech sort of planted tank products back in probably in the 70s, wasn't it? So yeah, so they, I've done a lot of work for Dunelay recently. I use their plants mainly, and they're really good quality. I'm using some Dunelay plants today. Also Aquaflora, Aquadip, and Tropica.
Aquaflora, said those, yeah.
Yeah. So Dave's got a really good selection of plants. You can see all grown aquaponically or hydroponically.
Hydroponically.
It's hydroponically now, is it?
Aquaponically is like fish underneath feet.
Oh, okay.
Fish waste feeds the plant.
Okay, cool. So you can see they're all really good quality, and they're actually growing, in these tanks rather than in a standard fish shop where you might see the plants in like a cascade system, not very well lit, not very much CO2. The plants are basically slowly dying, whereas these are actually thriving. So when you buy a plant from Dave, it's probably going to be bigger than it was when it turned up from the nursery. So really cool plants. So that's the base layer put in. And this is a cool product as well, and again by Dunelay. This is basically like a bacteria starter, and that bacteria is actually really important in substrates. You'll get bacteria forming naturally over time, but this just speeds up the process. And what the bacteria does, it helps the plant's roots use the nutrients more easily. So I'll just sprinkle this in. And again, this packet's ideal for this size tank, so just put it all in. Okay. And then we've got some cosmetic gravel now. It's basically quartz, I think, so it doesn't have any impacts on the water chemistry. This is Hugo Kamashi. There's lots of other brands out there. We might need more than one bag. We'll see how we go. Ideally you'd pre-rinse it because it can cause cloudy water, especially if you put your water in quite quickly. Hopefully I'm going to put it in quite slowly. Well, I think this stuff's relatively clean already, is it, Dave?
It won't cut the water, yeah.
It's really good, is it?
Yeah.
No, that's good. So it doesn't need pre-rinsing. So it's a nice natural colour. So, you know, the substrate's really important. It serves a few functions. The first is somewhere to anchor the plant roots, and then it helps to feed the plant roots as well. So some plants can attach to decor. We won't be doing that today. And all the plants that we're going to be using are going to be in the substrate, with the exception of our moss dome. Where's Dave? We got that moss dome, did we?
Yes.
Cool.
It's in the.
It's like a coconut shell, half a coconut with moss growing on top. Looks really cool. Is it there already?
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we don't need a lot of substrate. There's no real kind of magic figure for depth, but what I do like to do is actually have it a little bit deeper at the back and shallower at the front, and that helps create the optical illusion that the tank is even wider, you know, front to back. It's like a little trick that we use in Aquascape. With soils, you can actually bank it really, really steep because the soils are quite a loose structure. Allows lots of oxygen penetration. But with a sort of more compact substrate, you probably wouldn't want to go too deep because you can get what they call anoxic areas where the oxygen can't penetrate. That can lead to hydrogen sulfide production, which is toxic. So you don't really want to go too deep with this type of substrate. Okay, I think that's okay. I think we've got plenty there. There's enough depth there to plant into, no problem. Okay, now this is the hard bit for me. Where I'm going to put the plants. So we've got our planting plan there. We've got our cable ties, different colour codes for cable ties, and now I'm going to basically map out where I'm going to plant the individual species. So we've got all the plants, all the species I'm going to use here. We might use more or less depending on how we go. With Dutch, this is what I call a Dutch style aquascape. It's not actually sticking to the Dutch actually have a real strict set of rules with Dutch aquascaping, which was formed by the MBAT back in the 1920s. And they follow a really, really kind of strict kind of set of rules, like I said. And I'm not going to do that today because it's too hard. So I'm going to use this. It's basically a Dutch style aquascape. So my Dutch friends can't criticise me too much if I get it wrong. That's the main reason. So we've got our colour codes here. We've got our cable ties, and we've got our plants. Need to think about focal point. Okay, so any aquascape hopefully has a nice focal point, and the focal point is basically where your eye likes to rest in the aquascape. And with Dutch, generally we're not using any decor today, so we need to use colour for impact. So I'm going to use some red plants for the focal point. And when we're talking about focal points, we need to think about aesthetic balance. And so a common mistake might be to put your focal point straight in the centre, and that's actually aesthetically generally not the right thing to do. The human eye likes to generally be offset by a third. Any photographers out there will know about the rule of thirds, and we can use that to our advantage when positioning our focal point in the tank. So if you imagine splitting the tank into 3 equal sections vertically and even horizontally as well, where those lines intersect, that's where you can put your focal point, and generally it'll look quite good and aesthetically balanced. Does that make sense? Cool. So I'll have a little think about our red plants. So we've got some lovely Alternanthera. This is a Dunolay plant, Alternanthera reinekii red ruby. It's actually got a really kind of nice variegated sort of 2-tone leaf shape. this has been grown immersed, so it's been growing out of water. So you can tell that because it's quite a rigid structure. Eventually it will adapt to its underwater growth and it will become a lot more floppy basically because it doesn't need to support itself in the air. Like I said earlier, Dave grows this plant. They're growing, physically growing, as you can see here. So these are pretty much all our Alternanthera species. Loads of nutrient-rich water. So the plant's going to hopefully adapt really well to its underwater environment. Yeah, what else can I say about Alternanthera? High colour, it should kind of stay that same colour. The leaves might even go in a nice a red form with good lighting. And it's quite a fast grower actually. That is quite fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't really use much stems these days.
Fast.
And actually, I've learned recently that amino shrimp tend to nibble it as well. So just do bear that in mind if you're going to get some Alternanthera and you've got amino shrimp. So this is our focal point plant. So I'm either going to go a third of the way to the left or a third of the way to the right. Western culture, we tend to read left to right. So I'm probably going to go on the left. So I'm going to pop it around about there. So looking at my planting plan, I'll get the red cable tie. I'll use 4 and then I'll mark out like an area where I'm going to plant that Alternanthera.
Yeah.
So around about there, about the third.
Definitely use the depth as an advantage to the research.
Never actually used this technique before, so it was Dave's idea.
I thought I'd put you out your comfort zone.
Yeah, I am. This is massively out of my comfort zone. Normally I start off in nature aquarium aquascaping, it's all about the hardscape, so I get the rocks and the wood in there and have a really good play and get really excited about rocks and wood. So I've got these instead.
It's always good to have a challenge, George.
Exactly. You've got to step out your comfort zone to develop, haven't you? Okay. There we go. So that's our Alternanthera. That's kind of our main focal point plant. Another really kind of popular thing with Dutch style aquascaping is creating like streets. So you can see here, I'm sorry the photo's not that big, but you've got some lobelia there. You can see that central plant there. And they've deliberately kept it quite short, pruned it quite short at the front, and it's allowed to grow taller at the back, and that creates this illusion of extra depth. So we can use that to our advantage again. So I'm going to use some, it's quite a new species I think, isn't it Dave? Lobelia mini? It's not been around that long, is it? I know Lobelia...
Only a few years, but yeah.
Yeah.
On the whole, yeah, it's been quite new.
It's Lobelia cardinalis, which is actually used in pond. I don't know if anywhere you keep ponds, but it's actually quite a popular pond plant. But they've got this cultivar, which is a mini variety. And because it's a relatively small aquascape for Dutch, I thought it would be cool to use like a more compact species. So we'll think about where that's going to go. And I think, a bit like the photo, I'll probably plant it around the front because it is a foreground plant. So probably this front third area is where I'll put the lobelia. Dave, would you mind just writing the species name on there for us? So red's obviously Alternanthera, blue will be lobelia.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, size.
It's called Ruby Red, that, the Alternanthera, isn't it?
Yeah. So about a third. There. And then we could probably go quite far back with that, and we'll get that nice street effect. So going up like so. Cool. Okay. Really popular plant with Dutch style aquascapes is this Hydrocotyl leucocophala. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, but if you say it with confidence, everyone believes you. So that's what it's called, Hydrocotyl leucocophala. Unless anyone knows different, Steve? No. No. Okay. So this is a classic Dutch style plant, and it's really useful for creating like a like a frame. It kind of frames the aquascape, and very often it's used at the edge of an aquarium. It's allowed to grow up tall and even like arch over in the surface. So that's going to go around about here. So what's the next colour on the list, Dave?
Yellow.
Yellow. Thanks, mate. You don't have to use cable ties, you can use straws or bamboo, people have used before, but I thought this was quite a neat idea. So I think we'll start the Leucocophala about there, because it is a tall plant, and we'll probably want to put a foreground plant in front of that. So now the Dutch rules would say how many species per sort of square inch, if you like. But like I say, it's just a Dutch style. It's not a strict, by the book Dutch aquascape. So I'm just kind of developing as it goes, really. Okay, so that's the Leucocophala. We've got the lobelia. So we need to think about the background right there. So we've got some. So Cryptocorini balanci. So lovely plant. This is actually in its submerged form, isn't it, Dave? I think. So you get it from the tank there. It's all got all submerged plants in rather than these immersed plants. This will grow really tall. In fact, you can see it in that display tank there on the right hand side. So this will act as a nice backdrop. So I'll put that behind the Leucocophala. So Dave, do you want to? What's the next colour?
Green.
Green. Anyone ever set up a Dutch aquascape before in here? No?
Not strictly. I've done the same as you with.
They're really hard, aren't they? Really hard to do. Can't believe Dave's made me do one. I did.
I'm enjoying it.
I did one. It was a loose Dutch again, only a sort of Dutch style a few years ago. In fact, if you've seen the Facebook event for this today, that aquascape is a Dutch style aquascape that I did a few years ago. So Cryptocorini balanci, basically up there. Okay. So let's think about what we're going to put in front here. I think, so when we're thinking about what plants go where, we need to think about colour and contrast in textures and colours, obviously. So if you think about that, that's obviously like round texture, and you either want to contrast or you want to complement. So I like to contrast, so I'm going to go for something, a different colour and a different leaf form. So I think this Hygrophila compact mini actually looks quite a lot different once it's, this has been grown immersed out of water. It does look quite different when it's adapted to its underwater form. It's actually flowering. You see that purple flower? Interesting. So it'll either shed its leaves and grow new ones, or the leaves will just gradually change, and it will be a much brighter green. The leaves are a lot smaller, but yeah, it will be a nice contrast against the Leucocophala. So what's the next colour, mate? Purple. Purple. Exciting, isn't it, watching little cables flying in the tank? Okay, let's do the foreground on the left now. We want something that stays relatively short. We've got half a coconut shell here with lovely moss growing on it, or beard, and I think that would Probably look great there, and then maybe another foreground plant just to the left of it. So I'm actually going to put that in there like that. Cool, isn't it? Done. That's it, guys. Thanks for coming. Yeah. So further to the left, I'm going to use a beautiful little plant, relatively new to the hobby. Well, it's probably been in the hobby about 10 years or so now. Pogostemon Helferi. Sort of the nickname for it is Downoi, which means little star, and that's because of the shape of the leaves, so like little stars basically. It used to be really, really expensive, but now it's obviously mass produced in a nursery, so it's just a standard price now. But beautiful, stays quite short. If you've got good lighting, it will stay compact. You can trim it and it will grow new shoots, and you can kind of form really nice sort of textures. And you know, I could do what we did earlier, like the street, so having it shorter at the front and grown up taller at the back. So should be quite a cool little plant. That. What colours next, Dave?
Ooh, white.
White, thanks.
Got about 75 people watching on YouTube, mate.
That's good. Good days. Yeah, shout out to my YouTube followers. In fact, if someone wants to be brave, do you want to look on YouTube now on my channel and then fire any questions at me that people might be asking? Hopefully there's no spammers. I did one thingy and I just got a load of abuse from them. Do you remember that, Dave?
Yeah, there was a couple of
Korean guys, they started like, arguing with each other, didn't they? It was really offensive. That's like delete them, yeah. It's funny. Okay, that's the foreground done. Let's think about the midground now. So we're doing the Pogostemon Helferi at the front there, and then I think if we use this new plant I've never actually grown before. This is called Rotala Pearl. Anyone heard of it? Anyone grown it? No? This looks really pretty. Looks quite different when it's adapted to its underwater state again. But it looks like it stays quite short, quite a fine leaf texture. So yeah, perfect I think for behind the Downoi or the Pogostemon Helferi. So yes, what colour's next, mate?
brown.
Brown. Let's give that moss a bit of a squirt. So we need to think about the central area, background, and the left area. So what else have we got?
Do you want any hydrophilers or anything, or aquafilers? Have you?
Yeah, yeah. Let's have. You've got some nice big ones here, haven't you?
Yeah. Got Angustifolia, Polysperma rosanavig.
How much are the? Is that 3B? That's my favourite. Is that the big one on here on the right?
No, that one is Angustifolia. Or Tropical could actually start calling it Costata.
No, have they? So you don't get plants like that normally, do you, from a shop? Look at that, beautiful. So that's an easy one. That's going to go the back left. What's the next colour, Dave?
Orange.
Go down the back. Any questions, guys? Girls? No?
I've got a question here from YouTube from Gary.
Yeah.
Would you, just not directly related to this, but would you recommend a lid for the different size Aquascaper tank just to prevent jumpers?
Yeah, I could certainly make inquiries into a lid, but you can get something custom made from a glazier. It's not too expensive. But yeah, that's certainly an option. Open top tanks, yeah, you are limited by some fish selection. So you know, some fish are more prone to jumping than others. Generally, if the fish feels safe and comfortable, and you know, no sharp bangs on the tank or lots of movement around the tank, and you've got lots of coverage from plants, you shouldn't hopefully get too many jumpers anyway. But
I've never had any jumpers.
Haven't you?
No.
I've had a few, but yeah, some fish are like, you know. Steve, what are the worst jumpers? Steve's our fish expert. Flash catchers, yeah. I kept some scissor-tailed rasboras as well, which tended to jump. Yeah. But yeah, just do your research. Ask your retailer. Hopefully they'll know what's the best sort of fish for your open-top tank. The advantages of open-top tank, just while we're on the subject, is the best thing for me is the aesthetic. So, like I said, you know, when I was describing the tank, it's all about looking what's in the tank and not the tank itself. And so, you know, you can see the aquascape from above, which looks really cool. Imagine like, you know, a traditional hood. You know, you're kind of limited on your viewing angles. So, so we need backgrounds, central plant now. So, what do you guys think? What do you think I should go for? Anyone? Any takers?
Go for that polygonum, which we saw earlier.
Does that go?
It does go.
Change colour?
Yeah, it might. Yeah.
Might clash a bit with the
Do you want
outside grill, mightn't it?
Do you want a
I'll
green
tell you
one?
what. Pagostemon
Oh, Rectus.
erectus. Yeah, that grows quite tall.
Yeah, it's nice bright
Yeah,
green, isn't it? Yeah.
Are you sticking to just stem plants?
Apart from the moss, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be the one that maintains it as well, unfortunately. So, lots of trimming. That was a bit ropey, that one. Dave, do you mind just getting me a drink of water?
Yes.
So, what was the next colour? Black.
Black probably.
So, how many species have we done?
Done 9. I think that's probably enough actually.
Yeah. So, stem plants, they're called stem plants because they grow off a stem, and they're notoriously quite high maintenance because they often are quite fast growers, and they obviously need trimming and pruning. And what happens is wherever you trim your stem, 2 new shoots come off it generally, and that can encourage bushy appearances, but it can also get quite top heavy. So if you imagine one stem with lots more stems coming off it, it tends to look quite ugly, and the bottom portion often dies off because it's getting blocked. You know, the light, there's not enough light reaching it. So what we do is often we prune, get the pruned offcut, and we can replant that. And that's a really popular technique with the Dutch style of aquascaping. So it's quite labour intensive, but really good for kind of honing your trimming technique. Cool. Okay, so we've done our planting plan. Next job is to plant. So we prepare the plants, and then we wet the substrate basically. Don't fill it right up, but we could probably fill it, you know, a good sort of centimetre or so above the gravel, and that will just make planting a bit easier. Because it's not a soil, it tends to stay cleaner as well. When you're planting into soil, it can cloud the water quite significantly. So some of you might have seen this already. Had this since I started fish keeping, so I've got an emotional attachment to it. Been around the world, and I always use it. Well, I try to always use it to fill up my tanks. So it's obviously a kitchen colander, but it just helps to disperse the water rather than pouring a bucket in and making a right mess. Is it?
By the way, mate.
Just put it there like that. We have some water.
Yeah.
So any questions so far? While Dave's getting the water, I'll just talk about maintenance. So really, really important to do quite a lot of maintenance, especially in the early stages of an aquascape's life, because algae is really prone, really a significant risk, especially in the first few weeks. And it sounds like a lot of maintenance, and it is, but it's really, really important to do it, otherwise you'll get algae. So what I recommend is a 50% water change every day for the first week, every other day for the second week, every third day for the third week, and then after 4 weeks you can do your 50% water change once a week. Sounds like a lot of work, but it's better that than chasing algae, you know.
Will you start putting fertilisers in from day one?
Yes, I would, yeah. The plants are grown immersed and they've got a big nutrient store, but in my experience it's just best to really kind of spoil your plants, give them exactly what they need. They'll grow really healthy, and a healthy plant helps to keep algae away basically. So it's all about trying to create that really healthy environment for plant growth. I always like to think of algae and plants in competition with each other. So if you look after the plant the best you can, so you know, good light, good CO2, good circulation, good maintenance practices, good quality plants to start with, enough plants, plant densely. You know, we're going to be pretty much covering the entire tank with plants today. And then hopefully you won't run into any algae problems. I'm guessing everyone here has experienced algae at some point or another. It's the #1 reason people give up the hobby actually, so.
With fertilisers, do you do it like once a week?
Every day.
Or just a dose every day?
Yeah, so I like to use an all-in-one liquid fertiliser that contains you know, everything that the plants need, including nitrates and phosphates. Dave does a good brand here called TNC Complete, which is a good value product, and then I normally dose every day. And so for a tank like this, which is about 100 litres, I'd start off with dosing probably 5 ml a day, and then as the plants mature and they get more hungry for nutrients, as they get bigger, you know, you could go up to probably 10 ml a day. We're adding loads in that one now, aren't we?
In the 3 biggest ones, it's probably about 15 ml a day.
Yeah.
It's absolute low.
But you know, there's no algae, and that's because the plants are super healthy. You know, there's lots of, it's quite a hotly debated subject whether nutrients cause algae in a plant or tank. If basically your plants are healthy, you almost can't overdose liquid fertilisers, because the plants have a thing called luxury uptake. So plants are kind of opportunistic feeders, and they'll just grab all the nutrients they can in times, you know, because the plant might think it's going to starve at some point. So it just grabs and holds those nutrients in times where it doesn't have any. So you can literally dose, you know, as much as you like. Much better to overdose than underdose.
It's in balance here as well, isn't it? There's lots of CO2, there's lots of light.
Yeah.
So you've got to have lots of
It's all about balance, yeah. So the more light you have, the more CO2 you need, because light drives everything from the plant. So the more light you give a plant, the faster it wants to grow. So you need to feed it with good CO2, good liquid fertilisers, a good substrate. Spoil it, you know, spoil your plants, and you'll be rewarded with healthy plants and hopefully no nuisance algae. I'm going to use 4 more bucket, mate.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Casey.
Pass that over.
Yeah, so I would dose liquid fertilisers from day one. I'll get CO2 injection on there straight away. I'd aim for about 20 to 30 parts per million. CO2 testing is quite a tricky thing to do. CO2 is really unstable in water, so by its nature, it's quite hard to test for. Dave does stock CO2 drop checkers. Yeah. So it's basically, you can see one on that tank there, just that glass orb thing on the left-hand side. So that's filled with a special solution, which changes colour depending on how much CO2 is in the water. It's quite technical. I won't go into too much detail about it now, but if you want to ask me later all about CO2, then happy to go through that. But yeah, CO2 from day one, liquid fertilisers from day one, loads of water changes from day one, and then hopefully you're not going to run into any algae. And healthy plants as well. It's really important to plant heavily and get healthy plants. And you know, you can't go wrong with plants from Dave. Probably the best plants I've seen in any shop, and I've seen a lot of shops. So yes, we are ready for a bit more water, and then we're going to start planting. How exciting!
Slowest room tap in the world.
It's really slow, isn't it? Yeah, it's pain in my life, that tap. Maintained pretty much all these tanks today, just like 50% water changes and all, and that with that one tap is just really, really slow. Good, mate. Yeah, it's fine. Let's go for that. Okay, so I normally like to plant front to back. The reason for that is if I'm doing tall plants at the back first, they tend to droop around and cover the gravel. So best to plant your smallest plants first, and then leading up to your biggest plants. Okay, so I think we'll go with Belia. So that was central, wasn't it? That was the blue.
Yeah, I'll get our plant map.
Get our plant map.
Yeah, it's the blue one.
Cool. So I'll just explain how I prepare a pot. So this is a standard potted plant. Different plants are supplied in quite a few different ways now. This is like probably the most common way. It's grown in rock wool, which is a nutrient-rich medium, just to keep the plants anchored and supported in their growing in the nurseries, basically. We've got plants that are attached to decor there, so that's moss growing on coconut shell. We've got tissue culture plants as well, which I'll talk about that in more detail when I use it. We've got bunched plants, so the plants in that holding system just behind you, sir, with the glasses. They're all submersed plants that have to grow underwater, basically. And I think that's it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we've got the new blister packs as well. So these are quite a new concept from Tropica. I think that would be an overdo them as well.
That can overdo them.
Yeah. So these are basically in blister packs, so longer kind of shelf life in the shops. The shop doesn't have to rely on a relatively expensive and hard to maintain system. So yeah, quite a few ways of buying your plants these days. My favourite is tissue culture, and I'll explain a lot more about that later. So to prepare our pot, just remove your plastic pot and then peel away the rock wool. You can do this underwater in like a washing up bowl or bucket. It's actually much easier to remove the rock wool. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit left on there, but you want to try and get rid of most of it if you can. And then just repeat that process. What are these? Aquadip?
That's Denalo, that one.
Is it Denalo?
Yes,
Is it?
yeah.
Okay, cool. And then just do that again, so. And then what you can do is to get better coverage, if you're on a strict budget maybe and you can only afford a few pots, you can actually separate into even more individual portions so you can get better coverage. I'll be all day if I did that, so I'm going to plant, and I've got loads of plants for free, so I'm just going to be lazy basically. I'm like an inventors. So I've got a really cool set of tweezers here. They've got a little blue sapphire on from Elos, very nice. So if you haven't got any aquascaping tweezers or scissors yet, then they're definitely recommended if you want to get into aquascaping. Some plants you physically can't plant unless you've got tweezers. They're just really, really cool things to use. So we're going through our blue boundary there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just plant them, and then I'll take out the cable ties as I go. And I'm going to deliberately leave a open area at the front of the tank there, open gravel, and that's just going to make the aquascape look neat. So with Dutch aquascaping, it's all about neatness and formality, and that just helps to keep it looking really kind of formal. This is actually the easiest bit of it with the Dutch aquascaping. The tricky bit is maintaining the aquascape. pruning the plants. You know, the plants will grow at different rates. So to get this, you know, really awesome looking aquascape is actually really, really hard because the stem plants all grow at, like I said, different rates. And so to get that one special moment in time when the aquascape's looking perfect, that's kind of like the trick. That's like, takes, you know, the Dutch masters, they've been doing it for years and years, and they make it look really easy, but trust me, it's not easy. So yeah, I'll be maintaining this tank kind of in the long term, and it's, you know, I think Dave deliberately wanted me to do a Dutch aquascape because he wanted to kind of see me sweat a bit, stepping out my comfort zone. Like I said earlier, Nature Aquarium is my favourite style of aquascaping, relying heavily on hardscape to create an impact. The plants are almost, I wouldn't say secondary, but you know, the plants and the hardscape together, you know, help to make a really effective design really quickly. Whereas this is definitely a longer, you know, a long haul. So what the idea with the lobelia is, once it's adapted to its submerged form, I can start trimming it, and then I'll deliberately trim it really quite short at the front, and then let it grow quite taller at the back, and then it just helps create a nice sort of street, if you like. In a lot of Dutch aquascapes, they have, they might go sort of left to right or right to left. I'm just going to go from front to back because of the size of the tank. But yeah, there's lots of different sort of visual gimmicks, if you like, or techniques you can use to create a nice kind of formal layout. So I'm just going to take out our blue cable ties. Okay, looking at my special map. Okay, let's go for left hand side now, which is white, which is Probostum and Hellferry. System work, Dave.
Right.
Awesome.
Can't go wrong, can you?
Yeah. So, lovely little plant. Again, it's a potted variety, grown in the rock wool. Some suppliers now supply their plants in coconut fibre, just out of interest, instead of the rock wool. This is basically fiberglass, so not as necessarily as eco-friendly as coconut wool fibre. Okay, so it's actually kind of separated itself quite nicely. So there's one plant there, put it in tweezers, and then pop it in. The plants look quite sorry for themselves at the moment, but they'll perk up, you know, in less than a day. Give them a few hours of lighting. They're all phototropic, so they grow towards the light. Yeah, and in a few hours or so, you'll notice a difference. So this aquascape will be running long term. So do pop in store and keep an eye on it for me. I only live a couple of miles down the road, so no excuse really for me not to keep it looking good, hopefully.
How long do you imagine it will take until it's all fully immersed growth and looking something like what you want it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. 10 weeks? 10 weeks, 3 months?
Yeah.
And then that's when the hard work really begins, because you're trying to keep everything in check. Because, you know, this lot will probably grow quicker than lobelia, so you'll prune one and then not prune the other, and then, you know, it's all about trying to keep them balanced. So, yeah, it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. Thanks, Dave. So I can work behind because we've got the slide that forward. So I'd run the photo period for how long I leave the lights on would be about 8 hours. So that's pretty much standard in the shop, isn't it? Use a plug-in timer. You can get cheap sort of mechanical timers, you know, for a couple of quid from your local supermarket, or you can get a more expensive digital electronic ones, which kind of save the program even with the powers off. They're quite good. But yeah, really handy to use a plug-in timer if you don't already, just to obviously keep that photo period regular. Plants like it, you know, like regular lighting periods. I would never have my lights on for more than 10 hours. Generally at home, my tanks are at about 8 hours usually. You can start off with a shorter photo period to help limit the risk of algae. You know, and you can go down as much as sort of 5 hours if you wanted to, but obviously the plant growth would be relatively slower. So, same with the lobelia. I'd let the pogostemon grow taller towards the rear of the tank and keep it shorter at the front.
Can I ask, the roots of these plants, they've all come out of plastic containers, they're all surrounded by rock wool. So the plants that I bought, they got roots that twist round, curl around, up and down.
Yeah.
Obviously yours are perfect. But what is one to do with them is you prune them right the way back to...
You can, yeah, I mean,
or do you just keep them long?
some species of plants, like Cryptocorini, they tend to have a massive root structure and it actually goes through the pot. So what I like to do is cut the pot away, peel the pot away, then that accesses the roots, and then you can trim, we can even just tear the roots just about a centimetre or so left to make the planting much easier. And tearing the roots off, trimming the roots will actually stimulate new root growth as well. So, does that answer your questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Sure there's no spanners.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving over to the right hand side now. Which is purple, which is Hygrophila mini. Where is it? So same process as before. That's what you've been, isn't it?
That's what I mean. Yeah. I'm so glad you told me the right answer.
So you can trim it with scissors, or I'm just a big fan of tearing them really. Like that, and that just makes planting much easier. Okay, so like I said earlier, you can separate that into individual stems if you wanted to, but I'm just going to plant it in a bunch. And this will take quite a long time to adapt actually. I've been going at this at home, and it took a good sort of 4 or 5 weeks to change to its submerged state. So get rid of these now, aren't I? Any questions, Dave?
Just another. You probably already mentioned this, but just what's the tank and cabinet?
All right, yeah, the
on that?
tank and cabinet are from Evolution Aqua, called the Aquascaper range, which I helped develop in collaboration with Evolution Aqua. It's an Aquascaper 600 with a Evolution Aqua cabinet. Really good quality. I think retail for this is $399.
$399 for tank and cabinet.
The tank and cabinet, yeah. It's really good quality. You know, you can see how good the glass is. This has actually been used as in a previous aquascape, so it's not as clean perhaps as a brand new one. But minimum silicon work, just really neat. It's all about minimising any impact of the equipment on the aquascape. We'll probably do a bit more hygrotha today. Have we got any more?
Which one, the mini?
Yeah.
Yeah. For you.
Do you use a bubble counter for your CO2?
Yeah, I always use a bubble counter. It's just a really handy way of keeping an eye
What
on.
sort of rate would you be looking at when you start that off?
Yeah.
How much would you be putting through, would you say?
Say again, sorry.
How many bubbles would
Oh,
you
bubbles a second. In this, I'd start off with probably 2 bubbles a second in this size tank. Not all bubble counters are the same.
No.
Yeah, so some bubbles are bigger than others, but as a
Yeah.
general rule of thumb, normally go for 1 bubble per second for every 50 litres.
And the more growth you get, the more you've got to put that up, is it?
Yeah, kind of. CO2 is a weird one. It's best just to keep it as stable as you can. Once you've set it and things are doing well, then generally don't adjust it. You shouldn't go for more than 30 parts per million. That starts becoming more toxic for your livestock,
Yeah,
your
yeah.
shrimp and your fish. But yeah, as a rule of thumb, or just keep an eye on your livestock as well. If they start slowing down, loss of appetite, all the way up to sort of gasping at the surface, and you're putting too much CO2 in, basically.
Enough, would you like another
I
one?
think that's enough, mate.
Cool.
So, because it's so chunky, I don't even need tweezers for that bit. So, what you can do is actually deliberately keep, open substrate in between the plant species, just to, like I said, to keep this really kind of ornamental, formal appearance. They will kind of start to kind of encroach on each other, and that's when the maintenance comes in. That's when you do trimming and replanting, etc. So, got all that to look forward to. Okay, let's do kind of the mid-ground now. So we've got there yellow.
You wrote some pearl there.
Oh,
Red plant.
yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Where's the other pole then? Yeah, cool. So I've never actually grown this plant before, so quite exciting.
Is it relatively new?
I've never heard it before today.
So new it doesn't even come with a label.
I think it
Yeah.
stays quite short. George.
Yeah.
I think Ed was growing it for a while.
Oh, was he? It's a little bit like a smaller version of. Tropical used to call it a Marnia bonsai, didn't they? But they
Marnia
relabeled
bonsai.
it to Rotala indica.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a similar leaf formation.
Yeah.
They're a bit curled
It's
up.
quite
and closer.
attractive. I'm not sure how it will adapt, what it will look like once it's adapted to its underwater growth. So you can, separate it into individual stems, but like I said earlier, I'm just going to plant it in sort of bunches. So this is when tweezers will definitely come in handy. Quite a delicate root structure.
So many stems.
Those, isn't there? Who's this from?
This is from Aqueduct.
Okay. Have you heard of a plant company called Moorings?
No.
They do pond plants, but they do. I think they do aquarium as well. It's another Dutch company.
Okay.
So a surprising amount of aquarium plants are sold as pond plants this year.
Yeah.
Rotala indica,
Yeah, there's quite a few, isn't there?
fillers.
Eleocharis.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get like massive pots of Eleocharis for a couple of quid. Lobelia is quite a popular pond plant as well.
Massive as well.
Yeah, it goes. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, this is cool. This is like the mini version, so I'm hoping it will stay relatively compact.
One more after that, or?
I That's enough.
Yeah.
So this is all filmed on YouTube. So if you go onto my YouTube channel in your own time, you can review the whole process if you want to see it all again. But yeah, do subscribe to my channel if you can. It's nice to reach out to the aquascaping community. Okay, let's go for the red. Oh, we'll do that last, I think. Yeah. Oh, will. Okay. How kind of correct is it? Is it staying quite? Yeah. Quite substantial, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of our main focal point plant because of the obviously quite colourful. This light should be plenty to keep it a nice red colour. So fish-wise, I would keep it quite simple. I'm a big fan of lots of small, one or two species, big shoals of small fish. It just acts more naturally, and it just looks, looks more classy, I think. A lot of beginners tend to mix, random sort of species together. Have two of one species, two of another. A bit like Noah's Ark, and it just generally makes the aquascape look a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Untidy? Yeah.
Give YouTube a quick check. Really? Watch out for those spammers, I think.
Okay, getting there, isn't it? Right, so let's go for this area here now, yellow, hydrocotyle, leucocophala.
About 30 watts. Yeah. Roughly 24 actually. Not very much. Yeah, probably more like 20.
This is another pond plant actually. It's quite invasive, I think, the hydrocotyle. Can you use as a floating plant as well? So let's. Okay, now we're on to the background. So we've got the Aquarium Gardens side. Okay, we've got any more Gardens?
Yeah, we'll have a look for you.
So this will eventually grow to the height of the tank and beyond, and it will start to drape over, which should look quite cool. It's in that tank there, just on the right hand side. So a bit of a brute actually. It sends out runners, doesn't it? It started sending runners out to the front of the tank, so be one to keep an eye on for sure. What tissue culture part did I get?
I think it was Ratiola.
Oh yeah.
I think we
Didn't put that on the list.
put the list at the end of the. George.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Thanks for coming.
Cheers, Dave.
Cheers, Ed.
Must have got bored.
Bought a 6-pack now.
I know, I can't believe you're going to leave it. No fish. Okay, what's the black? Black. Oh, we haven't done black. Oh, we're doing these like massive.
Going to use
Like, yeah.
Focusing erectus.
I reckon Hygophila there,
Yeah.
because behind that, it's a too similar leaf shape, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
So we want contrast. So I think the Hygophila there, and then the Boston behind.
Got a finer leaf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Extra, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
just do the Hygophila now then.
Massive.
It is, isn't it? No, it's just stick the whole pot in. So this is grown immersed, so again this will take a little while to adapt to its underwater form.
A little while to get up the pot as well.
Is it really, when I cut the pot open? That's a beast, isn't it? Ta-da! And then we've got the nice to have some instant impact actually, isn't it? So if you wanted to, a lot of these plants will actually grow out the top of the tank and they'll start flowering, and it looks really cool. Not a traditional Dutch thing to do that, but hey. Alright, so Dave's just preparing the last species now, Postman erectus. So beautiful plant, really ornamental, really suits a Dutch style aquascape. Looks a bit sorry for itself at the moment, but it'll soon grow really vertical. Has a really nice vertical element to it. Excuse me. One of my favourite stem plants actually. It's quite a fast grower once it gets going. It's going to be hidden behind the Altananthera at the moment, but it will soon grow upwards. And then after the plants have adapted properly, I can start thinking about trimming the Altananthera, so it's exposing the background plants a lot more. How many more have we got, mate? Yeah, maybe last one more pot. So CO2 wise, I would deliberately actually put quite a lot of CO2 in for the first couple of weeks and probably not add any livestock. Because if I'm not putting any livestock in there, I can really get loads of CO2 in there, really promote the healthy plant growth, and then gradually dial it back slowly if and when I was going to put the livestock in there. The first livestock I would put in would probably be cherry shrimp and amano shrimp. Shrimp are great at just keeping the biofilm off the plants, which biofilm will eventually lead to algae if you're not careful. Cherry shrimp aren't particularly great algae eaters, but they just graze the biofilm and the microflora and the microfauna off the plants constantly, all the time. And they're prolific breeders as well, especially in harder water. So you can, start off with say 20 or so shrimp, and soon you'll be, potentially have hundreds in a few months. I've got an Aquascaper 1200, so basically twice as big as this tank. And I started off with 15 or so cherry shrimp, and there's probably about 500 or 600 in there now. And they're just really cool at keeping everything clean, especially mosses. Mosses tend to get covered in algae if you're not careful, but the shrimp really help just to keep them clean and stop the build-up. Okay, guys, that's the planting complete pretty much. Do you know what? I'm just going to use one more. No, I'm not. No. Right. You can overdo it, you see. So that's the planting complete. Now it's just a case of filling it up with water, fitting the filter, the CO2, and then just watch it grow, hopefully. Lots of water changes, keeping on your CO2, good circulation. The thing is with Dutch layouts, there's quite a lot of vertical elements in here which can potentially reduce your circulation, and circulation is actually really important in a planted tank. So the plants need to get access to that CO2 and nutrients, and if the circulation is poor, it can cause stunted plant growth, and then it can lead to algae issues. So I would fit a fairly large external filter on here, ideally with a glass lily pipe. The cabinets are already pre-drilled on the side there, so use some clear hose, some clear glass inlet and outlet filter, so it's presenting as little distraction on the aquascape as possible. So I just need to fill that with water. It's going to take quite a while, guys, because I don't want to pour it in too quickly, otherwise we'll get cloudy water. And this is the world's slowest tap in the.
I think we're
Are we going to pump it straight?
We're going to bucket it anyway because I've just realised it's not long enough.
Have we got another bucket? We can continue doing it. Yeah, cool. Any questions?
What style planted tank was it that caught your eye in the first place? I grew up on.
Oh, you grew up on Dutch? Yeah, it was.
Early 90s.
Oh, it's definitely a Marno.
Yeah.
Nature Aquarium Book World, Nature Aquarium World Book 1. So if you buy any aquascaping book ever, I suggest getting Nature Aquarium World Book 1 by Takashi Amano. Sadly passed away a couple of years ago of cancer. Really sad time actually. He was my hero, and he's the reason I'm here today, because he totally inspired me to take up aquascaping in a big way.
Nature Aquarium World.
Yeah, Nature Aquarium World Book 1 by Takashi Amano. So TAKASHI Amano, which is AMAMO. It's quite hard to get hold of now. But anything by him, aquascaping he's a legendary photographer as well. He's won awards like landscape photography awards.
And what about knowing all about the different types of plants? Because it's just so bewildering.
There's a lot of species. There's probably in the hobby currently available, probably a couple of hundred species.
Species of plants.
Yeah, it's just something. It's just like, are you into gardening?
Yeah.
You probably know lots. You probably know more plant names outside than I know. Just
Yeah, but I refer to books, so
there are some good books.
That plant based on Newcastle's pretty good, isn't it?
Yes,
So
yeah. So if you go on to you obviously got the internet, I take it. So www.ukaps.org/forum, and that's I co-founded. It's the UK Classic Plant Society, which I co-founded in 2007. They've got their own internet forum. There's a plant database on there, and there's loads of really good guys on there that will give you advice, and that's a really good place to go.
I've got the Denelay plant list.
Yeah, another good thing is actually a lot of companies now, plant companies, do really nice brochures, and they'll give you like a profile on a lot of the plants. Yeah, I'm sure Dave will sort one out for you. There you
Yeah,
go.
that's really good.
Yeah, there you go. You can take that away. Yeah, it gives you all the common
Whoa.
species available,
Cool. Whoa.
the growing conditions. So yeah, and just sorry.
Is that just ordinary tap water?
Yeah, this is just tap water with Chem Prime dechlorinator.
Yeah, Stephen Brown,
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, some water's like really high in chlorine, so we need to treat that really, otherwise it's toxic to the fish.
Are you warming that up a little bit, or is it straight cold?
Yeah,
water?
I think it's tepid, isn't it?
Yeah, we sort of mix it with, you've got a mixed tap.
Is that floating? Coconut shell.
It is actually, isn't it?
Yeah, that's in there.
Turn it upside
Oh,
down.
do
It's
you
got a
reckon,
bit there underneath.
the air underneath?
What are they?
There you go. Sort of.
Put a stone on it, so put a hardscape on it.
Divers trying to get out.
Sorry?
Divers trying to get out.
Yeah.
Get a little stone.
So yeah, this is a Dutch style aquascape. You can see it's a lot different. If you look at the other displays in the shop, it's really different. We're relying purely on the plants for the impact rather than any rocks or wood.
But presumably when you do it with rocks and woods, you're following the same sort of technique, are you?
Sorry?
When you're doing it with the rocks and woods, you're following the same sort of planning technique.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, with
Unlike me, who just went,
yeah. So it's worth talking about actually because it's really important. What we call hardscape, so rocks and wood. They're like the backbone of a nature aquarium style layout. So if you think about a human being, they have a skeleton, and then the muscles and the flesh form the body. Well, with nature aquarium aquascaping, the hardscape is like the skeleton, and then you can attach the plants to the hardscape, or the plants are there to complement the hardscape if you like. So if you look at those, excuse me, sir, if you look at those two tanks there, they're really good examples of nature aquarium layouts. You can see that they're dominated by wood. The plants have obviously grown over the wood and rocks, but the hardscape there is the backbone of the layout, and the plants act as like a complement to it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Whereas this, in contrast, is purely about the plants to create the impact. So it's like comparing. It's like going to like a country house with a really formal garden, like lots of beds of roses, or we go into the forest to see wildlife. So they're very different styles of aquascape. There are other styles of aquascape. We've got a thing called biotope, which is replicating a natural habitat, which we did working.
It's low battery, so I'll transfer that.
Yeah, is that low battery?
This one, yeah.
Is it? Oh, that's kind of.
Yes.
Okay. Biotope aquascape, and in fact the aquascape that was in here before this was a black water aquascape, so we relied on tinting the water deliberately with tannins to create this like murky, real sort of habitat where the fish would live in nature. So you're trying to create like the ideal water chemistry, but we're also using aesthetic guidelines to help make it still look beautiful, even though it's murky and dark. We can still make it look pretty by using nice bits of wood, bits of rock.
and is that one in the middle there sort of a cross between the two?
Yeah, kind of. It's like a bit of a fusion layout, isn't it? Because it's quite formal. There's a lot of formalities. You're talking about this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got like the formality of like a nice tight carpet, and then you've got deliberate bunches of plants. So there's a little bit element there of Dutch, I would say. In contrast, those at the back are pure. I would say more of a purist nature aquarium, where we're relying on that slice of nature from outside and transferring it into the aquarium. So if you've enjoyed this today, I hope you have. I've learned loads actually already about how I'm thinking already how I'm going to trim them and stuff. Do check out my YouTube channel. I'm on Facebook as well. Just search for George Farmer. Farmers and Farmer Giles, or Foot and Mouth, or lots of other nicknames I've been called over the years. I'm on Twitter as well, at the Aquascaper, Instagram. I normally try to post a couple of photos every day on Instagram if you're on that, at the Aquascaper. So, and do consider buying one of these beautiful tanks. They are amazing, and they're very good value, aren't they, Dave? And yeah. We do 300 cubes there, which is the smallest size we do. There's a 900 as well, so this is a 600, and we call it a 600 because it's 600 millimetres long. We do a 900, a 1200, a 1500 and 1800. I challenge anyone to get an 1800 in the house, they're so heavy. 19mm glass, 200 kilos just for the tank. So yeah, they're really, really good. They're real passionate about these aquariums. They're really, really cool. Cabinets available in 16 different colours as well, different finishes. So anything from like a wood finish, we've even got like a really cool, super trendy raw concrete finish, super matte finish as well. So this is like a white glass. There's a super matte cream on the left-hand side next to your aquarium. Super matte's really cool because you don't get finger marks on it or reflections. So good for photography.
It's also sealed really well because you know when you drip water on it,
Yeah.
sometimes the cabinets can bow. And
Yeah. So this is it's MDF, but it's been double sealed, so any water ingress hopefully won't penetrate it. A lot of cheaper cabinets MDF, but they're not as coated so well, and any water ingress just allows basically like Weetabix, it swells and twists and warps. So they're really good cabinets. All pre-assembled as well. You don't have to. It's not like IKEA, and you have to. Is it okay?
that's alright. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
still going.
So actually, running low on there as well. Okay.
George, with the minimal silicon work, does
Yeah.
it still pick up a bit of staining from some treatments?
Yeah, you want to watch out for medicines. Yeah, like malachite green and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It tends to. But yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be careful about using medicine. I've never actually had to treat a tank for disease because I'm a great believer in planted tanks are really, really healthy for the fish.
Yeah.
I've never had all my tanks are pretty much all planted and never had a disease. I think I had white spot once when I first started because I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, plants are so plants are kind of nature's filters, if you like. If you didn't know, they photosynthesize, so they take in light and CO2 and they photosynthesize, which means they grow basically. They produce loads of oxygen, which is obviously healthy for the bacteria and the fish. They provide shelter, they help fight off algae, and they're just a really cool thing. You've probably got the best selection of aquarium plants in England today, right here, all grown, either hydroponically or in a CO2 injected well lit system there. And is there offer on plants today?
Tissue culture plants are 15% off today. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll just talk a little bit about tissue culture plants because it's a really important topic. So, tissue culture plants, for those that don't know, these are grown in like laboratory conditions. So they're absolutely sterile. There's no algae or snails on them, and they're really, really cool products. They don't need to be kept in a relatively expensive holding system. Their shelf life is really good. That will probably be okay for about 5 or 6 weeks. And you get loads for your money. It looks like a small plant. It is actually a really, really small plant. They're basically baby plants, but there's loads and loads of it in there. There's like literally hundreds of stems in there. So a beginner might go into a shop and see the potted version, in a pot, and that'll be growing out like this, and they'll think, oh, that's better value money than that. But actually, you probably have about 20 times more plant matter in that. So really good value. I think most pots are about between £5 and £7 these days. But you can literally, I've done it. You can plant a whole tank with one of these if you're scrupulous enough by individually separating the things, which I did a few years ago. Do you remember that layout? Did you see that irigumi I did?
Yeah.
So just like there's a plant called Micranthemum Monte Carlo, and a pot like this, and I literally teased apart every single stem. I had about 600 stems, and I planted them individually in just a rock garden layout. And I grew it all. It grew perfectly and fine in about 10 weeks. So if you're really a bit tight on budget, then it's a really good option to go tissue planted.
Yeah, you could plant the whole. If you're doing a Dutch aquascape, you could plant the whole thing with tissue culture plants. But for today, we obviously use taller plants to get
Just to get
an impact and
yeah.
some sort of how it might look in the end. You could plant the whole thing with tissue culture plants, and
Yeah, you could do. It would look rubbish because they're, you know, for the first few days or so, weeks, because they're so small. So it would just be quite a boring kind of two-dimensional layout, which is why we've gone for sort of more mature potted plants today, just to give you an essence of how it will look, you know, in a good couple of months or so.
You could leave the cable ties in then for a bit of height.
Yeah. I'm just going to do an aquascape based on cable ties. People use Lego. I've seen people do Lego aquascapes. It's non-toxic, so. So filtration-wise, we're going to use an Eheim Echo
Pro. Yeah.
Echo Pro. Looking at, I like to go for about 10 times turnover in my tank. So all that means is work out the volume of your aquarium. So this is about 100 litres. Times that by 10,000 litres. So you go for a filter of about 1,000 litres per hour, and that generally gives you a good enough circulation to feed all the plants effectively. You can go higher, you can go lower, but in a high energy setup like this with good lighting, good CO2, good liquid fertilisers, you'll need to you'll need good circulation. Otherwise, you'll get dead spots, and the plants won't thrive, and that will lead to algae potentially.
How much surface movement do you like?
I like loads. So you've seen that's ideal, because a lot of planted tanks get surface scum. Most people have experienced surface scum at some point. So yeah, we like to use lots of surface movement. That keeps oxygen levels up, which means you can actually put a little bit more CO2 in than you normally would. If you didn't have much surface movement at all, you know, your CO2 levels would be potentially more toxic to your fish. The lower oxygen levels you have in your tank, the more toxic CO2 can be. So I like to personally have lots of surface movement. You'll go through more CO2 because the CO2 gets gassed off. It's very unstable in water. So you need to tweak up your CO2 to compensate, but better that than no surface movement and then potentially, you know, lowering your oxygen levels and gassing your fish.
How do you achieve that sort of?
So powerful filter. You see the glass outlet is kind of the hydrodynamics of it. Basically push the water upwards as well as down. And there's a surface skimmer on the back left corner as well, which you might be able to see.
Yeah, I've got a surface skimmer.
Yeah.
I just haven't got that much movement, but they are broken water.
Yeah. So yeah, surface skimmers are great. They can get shrimp caught in them. So Dave has his surface skimmer on a timer.
You have a timer, so
When the shrimp get in there, every 5 minutes or so they can get out.
yeah, so like an hour on, hour off kind of thing, so have a chance to jump out.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can put use one of the pots from your plants, and you can actually cut the bottom bit off there and place that on top of the surface skimmer. That acts as a barrier so the shrimp can't get in.
Yeah.
So that works well as well.
Yeah. But yeah, surface skimmers are really popular with aquascapers because the surface scum's a real nightmare visually.
So with a liquid fertiliser, do you use one particular type and keep that type forever? And
Yeah, basically,
or do you vary it?
I used to use Tropica Specialised a lot. I've recently switched to TNC, the nutrient company. It's all pretty much the same thing. It's an all-in-one, so it contains all the nutrients you need in roughly the right ratios. You can, like Elos, they do a complete line of different nutrients. So I think they do one with 6 bottles, and they do a more simplified version with 2. It's basically plant food at the end of the day. I've used lots of different dosing systems, from buying dry powders and making my own, all the way through to what I use today. And the biggest thing I've learned is plants aren't really that fussy, as long as you give them enough. They're not that fussy about the particular ratios, which people used to be obsessed with. A lot of people will test their water religiously for this element, that element, and then dose accordingly. I like to keep it simple. I like to deliberately overdose slightly and then do a big water change to reset the levels, and that does me. Keeps the plants healthy, no algae, and don't need to test my water. Any other questions, guys?
Are you supposed to mix the dry food with the ionised water rather than tap water?
Ideally, but the elements in the tap water won't really affect too much, so you could use tap water. Yeah.
Just something I read recently.
Yeah. If you mix in your own, the best thing is to do it. Get some good scales, digital scales maybe. And another thing is some dry salts, if you mix them together, can precipitate as well. So just be careful of that. There's loads of good information on the internet if you want to go into more detail. But with fertilisers, if you could take anything away from today, it's don't be scared of adding a little bit too much. I prefer to add fertilisers every